My kind of a church. I would like to begin with a preamble as a sort of an introduction to the main body of the sermon, if I may. I am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus the Christ, who is my inspiration of how I am to live my life and treat my fellow man. I believe that the Bible is my guide for knowing God, the church, and the importance of Jesus the Christ. For over 50 years now, I have served the church. My life has been greatly impacted by the life and teachings and ministry of Jesus the Christ. Therefore, I define myself and declare myself as a Christian believer. My problem has never been my faith, but the literal way that others say that I must believe and how I must practice that faith. And to that, I have to disagree. But let me share with you now my idea of what a church ought to be and what it looks like. It's my idea, and you probably have your own idea. First, my kind of church is free from the trappings of man-made theologies and worn-out creeds. So much of what is believed and practiced within the Christian church today has been made up by man-made laws which had nothing to do with Old Testament or New Testament teachings. It has really led us astray. And it's those kinds of things that I try to avoid in my ministry and get at the root cause of the meaning of the church. My kind of church likes change. Do you? You like change? It's great for the soul. And if you don't, why don't you try it? You might like it. Change is going to happen whether you like it or not. And it's going to change the way we behave and the way we act as we get older and older. Never stop learning something new and doing something different. There's a cartoon in that wonderful little cartoon in the newspaper, the Family Circle. You're familiar with it? Jeffrey is sitting up in bed praying, and his sister becomes very disturbed about that fact. And she asks the question, Jeffrey is sitting up in bed praying. Is that legal? Nothing more needs to be said. But my kind of church has a few knots attached to it. I probably could have added more, but I just picked out 2 or 3 for you to get the flavor. My kind of church is not going to worship a God who acts like a parental judge, keeping notes on each and every one of us, which will determine our future destination. Haven't you heard that growing up? You got to believe this, you got to believe that, or you're not going to make it. I'm sure that's happened in my family. I've got a brother and his wife who are very, very, very conservative. I won't name the church that they belong to. But when we get together, if we start discussing religion, it ends up in tears, this and that. And I can respect where they are coming from. I can respect the church that they belong to. All I ask in return, which seems to be very difficult for them, is to respect me and my tradition. That's all I ask from anyone, and that's all we need. Even in the diversity of churches we have, can't we just learn to respect one another's life journey? I know it's difficult for some, but we must do that as a church. Now, my kind of church will not use prayer to direct the course of history, nor to change the weather. My kind of church will not use baptism to cleanse babies from their sinful nature. You know that's still practiced today? That's why babies are baptized, to save them from going to hell. Can you believe that? I can't. And they're being treated as fallen children, just out of the womb, if they're not baptized. Strange, strange behavior. Well, what is my kind of church then? It consists of those who truly believe that they are among the called out ones. What do I mean? Who are these called out ones? The called out ones have moved beyond fundamentalism, whose beliefs are carved in stone, never to be changed or questioned. Do you know folks like that? Do you know churches like that? Are you one of them? Which is okay if you are. It's not my kind of theology, my cup of tea. The called out ones will set aside and no longer practice the prejudice that are held by so many of its members. There's no room in the Christian church for prejudicial thinking and behavior. Rather, the called out ones who seek to heal the divisions and the brokenness that haunt us today. There are only about 400 and some different kinds of denominations, which is okay. Nothing wrong with that. But can they respect one another in their beliefs? That's the key. The called out ones are those who put into practice the love of Christ for all peoples. All peoples. They seek to embrace one another's uniqueness where no one is excluded. Do you know of any instance in the New Testament where Jesus ever excluded anyone? He may not have liked who they were, what they were doing, but he accepted them for who they are. Never turned anyone away. And neither do we. My kind of church will celebrate the two sacraments of baptism and communion. Life seems to demand that our children be baptized and we ourselves be baptized somewhere along the way. For baptism is a ritual to welcome a newborn into the life of the Christian church. Baptism focuses on the wonder and the love of life, not on the depravity and the sin of life. And communion will always be a vital part of the worship experience. Communion focuses on the love of Christ. The act of communion reminds us that the communion table is open to all. There is only one table, and anyone who wants to come and eat and drink is welcomed at Christ's table, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey. Communion reminds us that Jesus is at the center of our liturgy and our worship together, empowering us to live fully, to love wastefully, and to be all that we are capable of being. We will appreciate more fully the meaning that God does not place a period where there is a comma. That is a great saying of our church. God does not place a period where there is a comma. And we will cherish the idea that we do not live by a closed book, but an open book with new revelations still to be revealed. Theology is not etched in stone once and forever. It's always changing, always developing, always growing. And I hope that you too are growing in your faith. And it's a different kind of faith than when you were a child. You are now an adult. And we ought to be thinking like adults when it comes to our beliefs and our way of living. We will not use the Bible as a propaganda tool, nor will we use the Bible in a literal sense, that you have to believe every word exactly as it is written with no questions attached. How dull that is. Not to be able to think and to ask questions. We are a question-asking people, and we will never stop asking questions because life is always changing and evolving around us. We never will insist that our beliefs are the absolute right beliefs and that we possess all the answers to all the questions that are in the Bible. We will interpret the Bible to help people to face life changes without feeling alone. We may not be able to take the sting out of life, but we can take the loneliness out of the sting. We will refrain from saying that our faith stance is the only right one, while all other faith stances are wrong. How arrogant to think otherwise. Our interpretation of the Bible allows us to ask questions. How can anyone be alive if we can't ask questions and think for ourselves? Well, finally, my kind of church exists to create Christ-like people with Christ-like love. There's a page missing. Now what am I going to do? That's what I get for using a manuscript, right? Oh, there it is. There it is. Life is great, isn't it? Huh? My kind of church saves people from the danger of wasting their lives by becoming far less than God intended them to be. Simply put, churches are to become communities of Christ-likeness, who are willing in word and deed to witness to the good news of God's great love for all people in the person of Jesus the Christ. There's no question in my mind, after being here for a year and a half, that this church, Pass-A-Grille Beach Community Church of the United Church of Christ, is a beautiful expression of what it means to be a live and vibrant church. Just a couple of three examples. We have a tremendous youth ministry in this church. 70 to 80 youth participating, doing marvelous things. What a ministry. And all those kids who come here are not members of our church. They attract one another. And on Thursday morning, the women on a faith journey. What an opportunity for a tremendous support group, which means an awful lot to a lot of our congregations. And what about those who dedicate their lives and time to go on mission trips at their own expense, going from place to place, mending things, healing things, where people have lost a lot in their lifetime for one reason or another. And as Jim mentioned, they're getting ready to go to Colorado. I wished I could go with them, but I can't. This is a great, great, loving church. And the things that we do here mean a great deal to a lot of people. We make a tremendous difference, whether you realize it or not, by being here in this community. And you ought to be proud to be a member of this particular church and its great ministry. We are a caring and loving church. I've heard that comment from time to time by a lot of you, and it's true. We are a very caring and loving church. That's my kind of a church. Why go through the trouble of belonging to a church if we are not loving one another, listening to one another, understanding and accepting each other's faith journey? The Spirit of God is calling us to be Christ-like people who truly love each other in word, deed, and action. This is my kind of a church. What is your kind of church? But I would like to add and repeat what Paul said in this very troublesome church to heal the wounds that were taking place there. But if I have no love, whatever I do doesn't amount to the hill of beans. Now, he didn't say that. But this is what he did say. Love is patient and kind. It is not jealous or conceited or proud. Love is not ill-mannered or selfish or irritable. Love does not keep a record of wrongs. Love is not happy with evil, but is happy with the truth. Love never gives up, and its faith, hope, and patience, it never fails. Love is the final answer of how we are to act and behave in the life of Christ Church. Amen. Let us continue our worship now with the bringing of our offerings.